Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're comparing hand-laid fiberglass and press-molded fiberglass over a variety of Corvette panels, which is the best for your car, price-wise, quality-wise, and ease of installation. So be sure to stick around. So the goal of this video is to give you some insight whether you have a Corvette C1, C2, C3, or you're buying some aftermarket parts for, say, your old Challenger, Charger, Mustang, whatever it is. There's a lot of hand-laid or press-molded fiberglass options out there for your car, and this is to help you identify what part you're looking at a swap meet, or if you're looking on your computer at home trying to figure out what parts to buy. These are going to be some tips. Hand-laid versus press-molded. A lot of times factory-style components, especially for Corvettes, were press-molded and not hand-laid. So if you're looking for originality, you're going to want to go to press-molded. Typically, price-wise, hand-laid is cheaper than press-molded just because the tooling is simpler and it's a little easier to get those. The molds are a lot simpler and it takes a lot less time and equipment to make those, so they're going to be a little bit cheaper, and quality will definitely vary based on the guy who's laying it up, where press-molded should be a little higher quality just because of the way it's squished together. It's going to be more uniform thickness, and because of that, it's going to be a little easier to install. Where a hand-laid part, the mold may flex because it could be a simpler mold, so the parts may have a larger variation between them, and hand-laid tend to get a bad rap just because they require a lot more finessing, and it depends how much work they put into developing the part. And as far as ease of installation, you're really going to have issues with hand-laid parts in some of these technical areas, like on a Corvette front end right here, right in here, and right around this area. I always have a little bit of trouble getting all that to line up because hand-laid parts end up being thicker in edges and radiuses, and they just don't fit as well as a press-molded part. You can get them to fit well. You're just gonna have to do some sanding and some grinding and some trimming just to get everything to line up the way that it's supposed to. But now let's dive into the front ends and actually show you a comparison between a press-molded one and a hand-laid one. So I have two identical front ends here, both for 65 and 66 Corvettes. One is a one-piece hand-laid front end, and this one is a jig-assembled press-molded piece. I have a lot of people asking me why I use one versus the other and the differences. So we're going to get into it here. So both are exactly the same on the outside dimensionally. You look at them, they both look great on the car. You bodywork them and paint them, and you stand back and look at it, you're never going to notice the difference. But there are many differences to them. So this is a Vetmasters front end. You can see it's got real nice, smooth, gray fiberglass, and you can see all the seams in here. For the parking light panel, the fender surround, there's the separate pieces. They come with the inner fenders glued in, and Vetmasters also puts their wiper grills in here to help set their hood height with the inner fenders. But these front ends are made in multiple pieces because they're a complicated geometry, and I asked him to leave these off for me to make it easier to install. And you can see this would bond right here, and you would still see a seam through here. Over here, on this one's from ACI, you can see that there's a little bit of flashing right here, and that's where that panel would seam, and the same thing for the parking light. And you can see there is a little bit of a step here, so there's a little body work that needs to be done here, just like it would be here. So there's real no difference there. The big difference is that this is made in one piece. So this is flipped upside down in a mold. They spray gel coat, which is what this white coating is. Over here, you see the actual fibers of the fiberglass, where this is a gel coat that traps all that in, and then it's all one piece of fiberglass, where this one is at least 9 pieces all glued together with bonding strips, etc. So if you look at the inside, you can see that it's a yellow color, it's textured, and there aren't any bonding strips in here, and it's all one piece except for the header bar and the parts for the headlights. So these are nice because they're one piece, you don't have to worry about it. They're a little more inexpensive than this piece. You're paying for this to be press molded. They use a big press, and they literally have two sides of a mold. They squish it together to get this nice uniform finish. If we look at the back side of this panel, you can see it's really nice and smooth, where this guy is very textured. So besides their physical differences from the way they're constructed, these ones tend to be a lot cheaper. They don't have the inner fenders installed. You have to buy those separately and glue them in and set them yourself, where this one has that work done. These also have a lot more assembly work and assembly time than these, which makes up for the difference in cost. And just the overall way that these are made, this can be made upside down in a mold. 1 or 2 people can make this in a couple hours. They hand lay fiberglass in there, let it cure. This one takes a lot more time because you have to make all the individual components, and they're all press molded. So that all takes time, special equipment, and you're paying for that equipment. So that's a big advantage to one of the two. Now, if you're going for an NCRS car, this is the style that they used originally. They were made out of several pieces and they were body worked. And if you're going for a correct car or a restoration, this is the direction that you're probably going to want to go. If you're going for a resto mod, race car, just a driver, it really doesn't matter. This is a great way to go as well. So now let's flip these guys over and show you some more of the differences on the underside. Now with both of these front ends flipped upside down, we can get a better look of how they're constructed. Let's start over here with the press molded one. You can see they have the inner fenders glued in. They also have the rubber seals installed in here in the correct way. They have the nut plates that you need for your hood, as well as your hood support. You can see the way that they came in here with the glue, made it look all nice, and it looks pretty original under here. So back here you can see the bonding strip that attaches the fender cap to the fender or the gills. And this is basically just a backing plate to bridge the gap between two panels. The parking light panel and the fender cap here are butted up flat, and this plate comes in behind it and gives it support because the glue is actually pretty brittle. You can grab it and you can flake it off, but the glue is very strong to hold pieces together if you're using fiberglass as the main load-bearing piece. So the glue holds the panels together, and this bonding strip actually takes the load between the panels. So if we look at the gill over here, you can see the bonding strip is halfway through. This would be scuffed up, and then you would put glue between the two, and then it gets bridged between there, and then it also glues on to the inner fender here. So it's a very strong way to do it. This is the way they did it originally. It makes it serviceable if you ever have to replace panels. And at the end of the day, if your car shows a seam later on down the road through the paint, you may see a little divot if it's not body worked out properly, which that's okay. That's the way that they were. I know it bugs some people. You have a really nice painted car and you can see maybe a little seam through here or the seam through here. But that's the way they did it originally. And if it shows original seams, no Corvette guy is really going to be all that concerned about that. Then over here, you can see it's just all one big piece. And this line right here would be where that bonding strip would have went on that other front end. Now, if you have one of these front ends, like I said, they're a good bit cheaper. You can scuff all this up to remove the texture in here. You can see there's a couple fibers that didn't get coated in resin. You can scuff this. You can actually put bonding strips in here and then put the inner fenders in here. Now, there's other ways to tell, like this fender lip here, from here to here is actually a bonding strip in that front end. So there are ways to tell if you try to hide it. But for a resto mod or a race car driver, it doesn't really matter. You can save a couple bucks from this. I believe these end up being a little bit lighter because you don't have all the bonding strips and the extra glue. In terms of strength, can't really say. I've never compared it, but ease of installation, this is a big one. This front end is going to be light years easier to install than this front end, mainly because these gills aren't on here. It's hard to get all the body lines on a Corvette to line up. You want to make sure that this curve fits the bottom of the door, this peak looks good, and this peak up here fits the door. So there's a lot of stuff to worry about on this side, plus you have this whole side over here to work on. So it just ends up being a lot. Plus when you put glue on the car, you have to worry about spreading this so you don't smear all your glue off. Where over here, you can do your mock-up and get the top of your hood fitting, or the top of your front end fitting the door right here. And then you introduce the gills and mock it up, and you can work each side independently. There's a lot less variables, it's more controllable, and you can get everything lined up right, because no two Corvettes are the same. Now, for this guy, if you really wanted to, you could cut these gills off, just like they were on this one. You could put a bonding strip in it, and that may give you a little bit of easier time to fit it. You know, that's up to you. That's going to be a lot of extra work for body work and stuff, but if you're having trouble fitting it, that's one option. Also, a big advantage to going with this type of a front end is this is what they used originally. The thicknesses and everything are correct on all the panels. Where hand laid, somebody literally sat in here and put fiberglass, and you can see, hopefully you can see, there's inconsistencies. It's a little bit thick here. It's thick around this edge here. And that really doesn't matter strength-wise, but when you go to install this, it makes a huge difference. Right here, you can see this is thick here, So they get thick here a lot of times. Especially in this area or this area, I end up having to notch the firewall a little bit because it's really hard to neck this down and make this the correct thickness without burning through the panel. So a lot of times I'll radius the firewall a little bit to make this fit, because if not, your front end's never gonna go the whole way back and fit right. Where over here, you can see we have nice crisp lines all through here. This is how this was originally done, and this is what the firewall and the whole car is designed to fit. So whenever you go with a product like this, which this may be 2 or 3 times the cost of this, you're gaining a lot in installation time, because this is going to be a lot easier to install than this guy. I've installed a few front ends, and it's really not that big of a deal to install these. I don't want to make it sound like it's impossible. It's really not. It's just a lot more tedious. This I could probably test fit and install myself without any extra help. This one, to install and glue it and to test fit it, I'm going to need an extra pair of hands to help spread this and just monkey around with it. It's a little more work, not a big deal, but just something to keep in mind. And I made a video on it on the Tribute Split about getting the fender cap height right with the inner fender, because if you get that wrong, your hood's not going to fit right. It's nice whenever you can buy a front end that already has that done. So this is a very nice piece. Vette Masters out of Virginia makes these pieces, and I believe they have a website coming up very soon. So I'll link that if it is out. You can also see the seam of the parking light. The parking light panels are separate pieces, and this lower area is a separate piece. This front piece seems like 1 inch around the corner. This is a separate piece, where over here, again, it's all one piece. But this is a very nice piece. We're going to use this on a 65 Roadster, and this one is also a nice piece. We're going to use it on a 66 Coupe. It's all about what you want. It's all about what you can afford. There's nothing wrong with either of them. Once upon a time, I feel like people used to scoff at people that used hand-laid front ends just because of what they are, and they thought it ruined the value. But there's 2 markets now. There's the resto mod market, and there's original. You can use either for restoration, pro touring, resto mod. It doesn't really matter. I bet if you looked really closely at a lot of cars that sell for big money on Barrett-Jackson, you'd be surprised to see how many of them actually have these types of front ends rather than these types of front ends, because they're a lot cheaper. Therefore, there's more profit, and a guy buying a resto mod might not know the difference. So a lot of times, the big dollar resto mods actually use these, believe it or not. A little bit of scuffing under here, and if you shoot a little bit of bed liner or undercoating in these fenders, and nobody will really know the difference. As far as manufacturers of fiberglass, this is Vette Masters, this is ACI. Lee Bump Composites or Shermershine made press molded fiberglass. Corvette Image out of Oregon, who got bought out by Kaufman, they also make press molded stuff, and I think they're out of Ohio now. Dynamic Corvette is making press molded stuff. They also make vacuum bagged parts, which are kind of a hybrid between the two of these, where you get more of the finish on the inside of these and you get more of the strength of these, but it's only really one side of a mold, which gives you the less tooling, and it's a lot quicker to make, but it gives you a better surface finish than this. So it's kind of a in the middle of the road, and some of the parts they're making, like that rear deck I had for that Tribute Split I did, would be kind of in the middle of the road between these two. In terms of hand-laid fiberglass, we have ACI. Stinger is kind of off and on. They made some stuff. I'm not sure where they're at right now. And then obviously Dynamic Corvette. So those are some of the big names in the industry. There's probably some other guys out there making bits and pieces, but those are the guys that make big stuff, at least for C2. C1 may be a little different. I haven't done a whole lot of research into that. But this is kind of what you're looking at. I believe 56 or 57 was the first year for press molded, where the original ones started out as hand-laid fiberglass. So from, let's say, 56 up till the 80s, I believe they used regular fiberglass, and I think they changed their formula to something else, but they've always been press molded in that time. So if you're looking 56 and up, if you're going for originality, this is what you're gonna wanna go to. If you have a C3 that's maybe, I don't know, small block, air-conditioned, automatic, for example, maybe you want to go this route with a hand-laid front end because it's more affordable, get you down the road quicker, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you have an L88 car, I'd go with that. Or if you have any big block car or fuelie, go with that versus that. It just really depends. A lot of your custom parts are going to be hand-laid fiberglass. All of your custom hoods, wide body kits, It's just the way it's made is a lot easier. But Dynamic is coming out with a lot of really smooth products, specifically their hoods. That's another thing that you look at. ACI makes big block hoods and other hoods, but they're textured in the middle. They have this texture. That's an area where I would not want texture. I would want to go with a press molded, or I would definitely sand and body work the underside of the hood, because you don't want to see all that texture when you pop the hood. On the front end, you're really not going to see it unless you really crawl around and look at the car. But the hood, you prop it up and you look at that nice engine bay and you look and you see a textured hood for a really nice finished build. That's just not where I want to be. Where Dynamic, they work on a mirror finish hood, which we're getting one of their hoods next week. But that's kind of the big difference. Also, you can see little details like the parking light panel has the hole cut out for the parking light, where the hand-laid one does not. And I've actually had issues getting parking lights to stay in these types of front ends, so I'd recommend doing a dry fit. Sometimes they're a little thick in the webbing here, where you can see it's nice uniform in here, and the way that those parking lights clamp into place, they really like uniform thickness, where these ones, I've literally installed them and they just fall right out. So you have to do a little bit of whittling in there, either with a little thin cutoff wheel or a sanding drum, and just blend that in. That's definitely an area that needs some finessing. So you definitely want to do your mock-up when you're building a car, but especially when you're using something that's aftermarket that strays away from originality. So I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but if you see a C2 Corvette for sale, a lot of guys will go up here. The first thing they do is stick their hand right in this location, and there's the bonding strip that goes right through here, and you can feel it. On a hand-laid front end that does not have any bonding strips, you can just feel it's either smooth or there's just no lip. So you can feel it the whole way through here, and you can feel these bonding strips up here, which the hand-laid front end has this lip, but it doesn't have the bonding strip here. So pretty quickly you can identify which one, which front end you have. I wouldn't recommend going up to somebody's car that's not for sale. I would never touch somebody else's car, but you can also just literally stick your head up in there and look and see if there's one. You don't have to go feeling somebody's car, but that's just a quick way to look and to see what you're looking at. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't worry, we're still working on this little 67 Roadster back here. I'm chugging away on it. We'll have some big progress on it for next week's video. I just didn't have enough stuff accomplished already in this week to put out a good video for you guys. So hopefully by the end of next week, the door won't open. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have quarter panels on this thing. The firewall back will basically be roughed in, and we're having a front end delivered for this as well as a hood, so we can get this guy mocked up and get it ready to go home pretty soon. So this one's gonna be pretty quick, and we'll dive into that split window next. But like I said, we're gonna have plenty of work, and I have a little gap in my work schedule next week. So I'm gonna have a full week to devote to working on cars, which will be perfect. So we'll be able to catch up a little bit and get plenty of videos out there. And I have some more video series coming out there that you guys aren't gonna wanna miss, that I'm pretty excited about. So hopefully you guys are too. So make sure you like and subscribe. That really helps my channel, helps it grow, and helps us get to this next phase. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later. All right, so you guys aren't gonna believe this. Check this out, date and time. I just got this email here, but he's asking to know, what's the difference between hand-laid or press-molded fiberglass? A guy's literally shooting a video right now. I mean, what better timing is there than this?